But first, is an algorithm rigging the rental market in Chicago? The U.S. Department of Justice seems to think so. The DOJ is suing a tech company that makes products for landlords, including landlords right here in Chicago. The lawsuit alleges that the company's software is being used to drive up rents in an illegal price-fixing scheme. So here to let us know what is going on is Amy Chin, data reporter for WBEZ. Welcome back, Amy.
Hey, Sasha.
So this software, it's made by a company that's called RealPage. Tell us about it and what service the software offers to landlords exactly.
Yeah, so like you mentioned, RealPage at a high level is a real estate software company. They do a lot of different things for landlords, primarily large corporate landlords. So these are things like paying your rent, maintenance portals, tenant screening. But the product that they are coming under fire for essentially is a rent setting product, which they call, quote, revenue management.
Rent setting.
Yes.
But they call it revenue management. Interesting.
Yes. And basically how it works is it takes in a lot of data from competitors. So this is data on rent, but also the number of rental applications per unit, vacancy rates, future apartment availability, renewal rental rates. They feed all of this data into a big data algorithm that then generates daily rental prices per floor plan, per unit for apartment buildings.
Okay, a lot of calculations happening behind the scenes. So we've mentioned, of course, that DOJ lawsuit, and there's also a federal class action from tenants against RealPage at the same time. So talk to us a little bit more about these lawsuits, Amy. What exactly are they alleging that the company's doing wrong? What's illegal here?
Yes, great question. So my coworker Angela Podieski and I, we reviewed the over 100-page DOJ complaint, the 300-page federal class action lawsuit.
Wow.
And there's a lot in there, but essentially what they are alleging is that RealPage is violating U.S. antitrust law and that it harms competition and therefore harms renters. So there's a couple of ways that they're doing this. What they allege.
Yeah.
One is that they are illegally sharing proprietary sensitive data between competitors. So like I mentioned, this is a lot of the really specific data. And this essentially puts renters in a worse position for negotiating rent because your landlord knows more about what competitors are pricing than you do. And so they can more confidently say, I'm not negotiating, I'm not budging on this rental price because I know that other buildings in the area are also increasing their prices to this.
So it lets you not, sort of limits your ability as a renter to negotiate, to push back.
Right, because this is data that's not publicly available on like Zillow or apartments.com.
Gotcha.
It also alleges that RealPage's algorithm is designed to maximize rents and minimize rent decreases. So there's a couple ways they do this. One is in markets where there's low demand. So think Chicago in the winter. Not a lot of people are renting and moving. There may be a lot of vacant units. RealPage's algorithm will essentially recommend landlords hold those units vacant instead of bringing the price down, essentially trying to tell them, you can't lower your prices. You have to keep them and keep these empty units.
Wow.
RealPage also, according to this lawsuit, makes it easy for landlords to accept these recommendations and makes it very hard for them to contest them. So something that RealPage has said in response to the Justice Department's lawsuit is that, hey, we're just giving landlords recommendations. They don't have to take these prices. They can choose what they want to do.
So they're putting it back on the landlords.
Exactly. But the lawsuit has all this detail alleging that, if landlords don't take the recommended price, they have to kick it up to a manager, and then this manager has to then kick it up to a RealPage pricing advisor. They have to kind of provide a written business statement for why they reject the rent. So they make it really hard.
Nice and complicated, for
exactly.
sure. This company, RealPage, that we're talking about, how long have they been around?
So according to the class action lawsuit, they've been around the kind of rent setting business since 2016.
Okay.
RealPage was founded, over 20 years ago, and since then they've been making a number of acquisitions and kind of building up the data that they have that powers the algorithm.
So how long has this been going on? What the lawsuits are alleging?
Yeah, so what they allege is it's been going on since 2016.
Since 2016.
Yeah.
So do we know how widespread the use of this software is in our area?
Yeah, so we don't know for certain which buildings are using the rent setting algorithm, But what we do know is that according to RealPage's own data, there are roughly an estimated 70,000 apartment units in the Chicago metro area that are using the rent-setting algorithm to price rents. And, Chicago is a renter city. Half of us are renters. And, even though it's just 70,000, which is still a significant share of apartments, even if it's just a small share, a handful of landlords that are using RealPage's algorithm, experts say that it can have kind of these spillover effects onto other buildings that aren't using it because, small mom and pop landlords, they might be looking on Zillow, they might be looking at these websites, and they might see that, our competitors have raised the rents, so we should also raise our rents accordingly as well.
Right.
So it can kind of have an effect on the broader market as well.
Well, you know what I'm thinking. I rent as well for now, and I wonder if there's a way to tell if my building is being priced in this way.
Yeah, I mean, the DOJ lawsuit has a lot of detail on what behavior rent typically has in a building that uses RealPage. So there are a couple kind of signs. So one is that the rents change daily. So you might be looking at a unit, next door one day, and the next day the prices are going to be different. The prices are hyper-specific numbers. So, you or I, if we were a landlord, we might price our apartment at $2,000. Mm-hmm. The algorithm will suggest something like $2,169. Hyper-specific numbers that no human would necessarily come up with.
But landlords are like, yes, that's the number I want. I'll choose that number.
Yeah.
And they're pricing their apartments using what the algorithm suggested.
Yes, they are recommendations, but a landlord is actively choosing to accept them. And in the Justice Department's lawsuit, they quote a RealPage executive essentially saying that, we help landlords increase their rent from $10 more to $50 more. So even just like marginal increases are something that the algorithm helps them do.
So if you're a tenant and your building is being priced this way, what can you do, if anything?
Yeah, so we did talk to some experts. We asked them this. And one thing you can do if you feel comfortable with it is just directly ask your landlord or your building manager, hey, I noticed I saw RealPage on my lease or payment portal. Are you guys using this to set prices? And you can kind of act accordingly based on what they say. Mm-hmm. There's also been significant attention from lawmakers recently in Chicago.
Yeah.
Alderwoman Rossana Rodriguez-Sanchez, she introduced a resolution calling for a hearing on the local impacts of RealPage. And so, experts did advise, if you feel comfortable, reaching out to your local alderperson or local legislator and letting them know that you suspect RealPage is being used in their district.
I see. Well, leave us with this, Amy. Where do the lawsuits stand now? And any idea whether, the DOJ and the class action lawsuits, whether they've got a good chance of succeeding here?
Yeah, so the lawsuits are moving through the courts. I'm not sure, what chances they have, but, experts have said that it might take some time to go through the courts. And so I think renters, tenants should keep, up to date with what's going on. We'll continue to follow the story. But, there could be potential for, settlement down the line.
Interesting stuff. We've been talking with Amy Chin, who's a WBEZ data reporter, about federal lawsuits against software company RealPage, alleging its algorithm may be illegally fixing rent prices here in Chicago and other cities. Thank you so much, Amy.
Thank you.
Up next, how well do you know the change-making women in American history? The Smithsonian's collaborating with the U.S. Mint in a 4-year series featuring quarters with the faces of women whose lives changed the U.S. and the world. We're going to dig into these well-known and lesser-known figures and the significance of this kind of representation of women in history. Just ahead on the program,